So welcome back. My name's Mary English. This is episode. I think we're having episode number 12. And this week we are learning about Uranus. Uranus is my most favourite planet. And it was discovered in Bath by a chap called William Herschel, who was German. And he came over here with the army, I think he was in. And he was a musician in an army band. And he really liked, I think he came over here for a gig, and he liked it here so much he decided to stay, and he moved here with his sister, who was a Pisces, and William himself was a Scorpio. And when he was here for a length of time, he set up a telescope in his back garden and started looking at the night sky, and that's how he discovered Uranus. Now, up until he started messing around with his telescope, nobody had developed a telescope with enough magnification to be able to see into deep space, because Uranus, trust me, is a long way away from the Earth. And so he'd invented the glass necessary to go into his telescope to reflect light to be able to see further into space, because up until people were just using things that didn't have great magnification. But what he developed was a way to make the magnification max so he could see further into space, and that's how he discovered Uranus. And he made a livelihood out of it. There he was. And the thing was, he totally upset all the other astronomers, because he wasn't even a professional astronomer. He was just doing it in his spare time with his sister. So he upset loads of people because he discovered this new planet. Like, tons of people had tried to do it, but they just hadn't. But because he was a fanatic, what with being a Scorpio and all, I think he was a Scorpio. I'm sure he was a Scorpio. He'd either a Scorpio, moon in Capricorn, or he was a Capricorn, moon in Scorpio, or something like that. Actually, let me just double check William Herschel. I don't want to be telling you things that aren't true. Let's do Herschel, and we'll check Herschel. I'm sure I spelled that wrong. Right, Herschel. No. Let me go back. Yeah, and Herschel. It's a funny spelling. Hershel. Here we go. 15th, yes, he was a Scorpio. Thank goodness I didn't remember that wrong. Scorpio with moon, they're not too sure, because the moon could have been in Capricorn. No, moon was in Capricorn, yeah. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, he was a Scorpio. And because the Scorpios can get a bit fanatical about things, he was very, very fanatical about looking at the night sky. And his sister was called Caroline. She was, I say, Pisces. And the year that he discovered it was back to work in 1772, 1774, and in 1781, that's right, he discovered Uranus. Anyway, the museum to commemorate William Herschel's discovery is in Bath, because his discovery was made in Bath. So I'm just so happy to be living here, because it's my favourite planet. And the symbol for it looks like an aerial, a TV aerial. And I don't think people even have TV aerials anymore, but if you imagine an old-fashioned TV aerial, that's what the planet Uranus's symbol looks like in your chart. So get your chart up, check to see where Uranus is, and it will look, of all the symbols for the site of the planets, Uranus is the one that looks the weirdest. Yeah, most of them look like something, and this really doesn't look like anything. So you've got sort of two curves with the line going across it, and then a little blob coming off it. It's like, oh my goodness, what does that look like? But they're supposed to look like a TV aerial, sort of like something electronic, because Uranus is the planet that governs and looks after electrical things. So they are. William Herschel discovered Uranus in Bath in 1780 something or other, and when 1781 I think it said, yeah, when he discovered it, it was actually in the sign of Taurus then. Now it takes 80 plus years to go around the zodiac, around about 84 years. So yourself, wherever your Uranus was when you were born, it'll take at least 84 years to go back into that same sign again, and you'll be having what we call a Uranus return. Now, Up until the point of Uranus's discovery, all we had was the planets up to Saturn, and no astrologer was using anything other than those. So when a new planet was discovered, oh my goodness me, all the astrologers, so we're not talking about astronomers, but astrologers also went, oh my goodness, what we can do, we've got a new planet. So it had to develop a new system for it and find out, what did it mean? What did it mean for us on Earth? What did this planet represent for us? And it was eventually determined that Uranus discovered erratic things because its orbit is erratic. And we'll come on to why it's erratic next week when we learn about Neptune. Okay, so keep your eyes peeled for my next episode next week. And Uranus is about things to do with freedom, erratic stuff. Imagine it like an electric light that you can turn on and off, but you never know when it's going to turn on and off. And so we also think about Uranus as being the planet of freedom. So get your chart up and look where your Uranus is located, because that will be where you've got your freedom issues. Now, our chart examples we're going to be using this week, we're using two. We're using Celia, and we've used her before, Celia Gunn, who is the author of A Twist and Coyote's Tale, and she's also the author of a fabulous book, Get It. It's called Totem Animals. It's all about the animal that might be your totem, totem animal. And in her chart, she has Gemini Ascendant, and her Uranus is very near to her Ascendant in the sign of Cancer, but it's in her first house, and what we call in astrology, it's conjunct her Ascendant. So freedom is so important for our Celia. So A, you can't tell her what to do. B, she needs to feel free. She needs to live her life her way. So if your Uranus is on your Ascendant in your first house, the sense of freedom is so important to you. You really, really won't want anybody running the show. You've got to be sort of in the driving seat. The worst thing you can do with somebody with Uranus on the Ascendant is to sort of lock them up, chuck away the key. They're just going to go crazy. Now, I know quite a number of people that have got that signature, and they're both Taurus, because Celia, her sun sign is Taurus. Another one is my supervisor. She's also got Uranus on the Ascendant, but she's got a Cancer Ascendant, which modifies it slightly, but she again is also a freedom freak, and she does like to live her life her way. Not to say that she won't listen to other people, because she will, but again, the sense of freedom is terribly important. She, now retired, spends a lot of time travelling around in a camper van, going to different places, so that's where she gets her sense of freedom from, the freedom to travel. Now, the sign that your Uranus is in and the location of it are important in your chart. So, I say in Celia and my supervisor's case, they're both in the sign of Cancer, and Cancer is about the family, so it needs to have freedom within the home and the family. So the sign that it's in will modify it. So, my generation, because it's a generational planet, have Uranus in the sign of Leo, for goodness sakes. Complex. And Leo's all about sort of drama and dramatic things, blah, 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 blah. And Uranus is about freedom. So, my generation, I think sort of pop came about. I was born in 1960. So the sort of freedom to be a performer, really. Pop music really sort of hit the big time. Up until then, people had music. But, when Uranus was in the sign of Leo, it's very, very much we're going to enjoy ourselves and have fun. And Uranus has an affinity with the sign of Aquarius. So each sign of zodiac's got a planet that looks after it. The one that looks after Aquarius is Uranus. So your average Aquarius, if this is you, you're also a freedom freak. Yeah? Now, talking about freedom, the other person's chart we're using today is Mr. Donald Trump, who is the President of America. You can get his chart by going to Astro Databank and sticking in the word Trump, and it'll come up. In his chart, he's got his Uranus and his sun sign, which are both in Gemini, and what we call conjunct. They're very near to each other. So in Trump's case, his Uranus is 17 degrees and 54 minutes. Sorry, his sun sign is 22 degrees and 56 minutes, and his Uranus is 17 degrees 54. So they're only 5 degrees apart, which in astrology is conjunct. If a planet is within 8 degrees to another planet, then we call that conjunct. And And so that's a bit sort of scary, really, having somebody that's got Sun and Uranus conjunct. What you need to remember, if this is you or someone that you know, to have your Sun sign and Uranus very close to each other, you are not going to know what they're going to do next. Do you know why? Because they don't know either. In Mr. Trump's case, because it's in the sign of Gemini, not only does he not know what he's going to be doing next, but what he is going to do next will be completely different to what he might have done before, because Gemini is the sign of liking lots of change and also not liking to repeat themselves. So the reason he's making such a terrible job of being a president is because he hasn't got a clue what he's doing, and he's never likely to have a clue about what he does about anything, because he might wake up one day and think one thing and then 5 minutes later think something else. I mean, unfortunately, he's also got Mercury in the sign of Cancer, so he doesn't even know that he's thinking. I mean, if his Mercury had been in his own sign of Gemini, there may have been some hope, but there isn't. So he's sort of operating in two different ways, in two different, I don't even think the word operate works. But anyway, he's got Sun conjunct Uranus, so the man is completely unpredictable. So you can definitely predict the fact that he's unpredictable. So there we go. Uranus is all about freedom. It looks like a TV aerial. It'll be in your chart somewhere. Find it. Astro Databank won't give you the analysis of Uranus in the sign of blah 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 unless it's somewhere significant in your chart. So just Google it. Uranus in Libra, Uranus in Scorpio, and you'll get an interpretation. But we have discussed the signs of the zodiac, so just sort of think about the core word for each sign, and then stick Uranus with it, and it's freedom too. So in Cancer, it's freedom to be within the family, or freedom in the family, and Leo is freedom to, Leo's all about showing off and stuff, and being visible and performing. If you've got Uranus in the sign of Virgo, for instance, it's freedom about health and healing. It's Libra's freedom to love and choose your partners. In Scorpio, freedom to go deeply. If it's in Sagittarius, freedom to philosophize and travel. If it's in Capricorn, to be realistic. If it's in Aquarius, to be weird and wonderful. If it's in Pisces, to be intuitive. In Aries, it would be freedom to be the leader. And when Uranus was discovered, it was in the sign of Taurus, to be practical. I don't really think Uranus and Taurus go together. Freedom to be practical, yeah, interesting. And in Gemini, freedom to think and do things differently. So that's just a quick whiz around all the signs of the zodiac and the Uranus being in those signs. So find it in your chart, go to astro.com, get Uranus up, have a look at it. Where is it? Where do I need to feel free? And never ignore your Uranus. I can't tell the amount of people that do, but don't. It's incredibly important for you to understand it, because it's such an erratic planet. If you don't get a handle on it, you might find, at some point, like, bing, it pops up and you think, wow, where did that come from? It'll be your Uranus. And so there it was when you were born. It's in a certain sign of the zodiac. You might find that eventually it goes into your sign, like your sun sign. And when it went into the sign of Pisces, I had a client in particular sold his house. Why would you do that? Sold his house, got himself a camper van, travelled the UK playing his guitar, and he did it for the whole transit of Uranus. And then finally, when it finished and it went in the sign of Aries, he was like, oh my goodness, what have I done? I haven't got a house anymore. So be aware that when Uranus does go into your own sign, so like I'm a Pisces, already done it, but when it goes into your sign, it's in the sign of Aries at the minute. You don't just drop everything and go, I want to be free, because you might not actually benefit by that. It's not a lasting transit. It only lasts for about 5 or 6, maybe 7 years. And it will go retrograde at the moment. It is retrograde in the sign of Aries, so you need to watch out when that happens, because it's just chaos when it goes retrograde. You don't know what's going on. And remember that when Uranus is transiting or wherever it is in your chart, don't try and predict anything. Just sort of predict the unpredictable. That's the way to. And it's very exciting when it does go into your sign. It goes into your moon or sort of past your Mercury or something. It's terrible. Everything just sort of happens. Wow, it's amazing. But you've got to treat it a little like, one of those rides that you get, I don't know, one of those Disney rides that go up and down, and you're like, you're sort of losing your breath as it goes around a sharp corner. It's that sort of idea. Get lots of rest when Uranus is transiting. So find Uranus, find the sign it's in, look to see where it's in your chart. We will discuss houses in a later episode, but as I say, today was episode 12. We were covering Uranus, the planet of freedom. If you'd like to learn astrology, do get in touch with me, mary@maryenglish.co.uk. I do teach it one-on-one, and it's £25 per lesson. There's 6 lessons, so it costs you £150. I do it by Skype, I do it by YouTube, and I do it face-to-face as well, and I love teaching astrology. So if you want to learn, do get in touch, and I hope you've enjoyed this week. Speak to you soon. Bye bye now.